Thanks for checking out this horror debate series video. So if people don't know how this works, I'm going to present, in this instance, my pick for worst horror movie franchise, and your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete is doing the same. So you can vote on whose arguments you like the most. Go ahead and go to his channel if you haven't seen this video already. It is linked in my description. Then once you've seen his video all the way through after mine, or mine after his, you can go to the community tab of my page or my channel and vote for who you thought did the best. Or there's also a selection for tie as well. So you can do that if you feel like you just can't decide but you want to vote. So go ahead and do it. We're just doing that for fun, but it's a good time. Also, comments are extremely welcome. Would love to hear your picks for the worst horror movie franchise. And also just your opinions on what we have to say, both of us. And if you want to, I know I've said this before, you can copy and paste the exact same comment for both of our videos, if that works for you, just because, you know, we don't read each other's, comments necessarily. Sometimes, but not all the time. All right, so let's get into it. Let's have some fun. And I will say right now, I'm not going to say what it is in case you haven't seen this video, but I haven't seen the franchise that he is selecting. I haven't seen a single film out of the franchise that Uncle Pete has selected, so I may be at a disadvantage, I don't know. But I feel pretty good about choosing Evil Bong. The Evil Bong franchise by Full Moon Pictures, sorry. Probably the best thing about the franchise, in my opinion, would be the opening song is probably one of the best things. And B, the fact that there are moments where the acting is like a fun so bad it's good at times. Not always, but at times. But that goes to one of my main opening points, which is the acting in this entire franchise is, for the most part, pretty bad. Like, bad. For the most part, not so bad it's good, but like I said, you do get those moments of, like, very enjoyable so bad it's good acting, but it's just not consistent. Another thing, there's some really stupid, bad-looking CGI in this. It's not just the early ones that are, as CGI ages, it always just looks terrible, so it's not just that going on. It's just they look super cheap. They are super cheap. And here's the thing, like, you can do super cheap, but still make it good. It's just what they were trying to do for how cheap it was and how little it appeared they cared. They just, like, poop out these movies for the most part, especially at the end, and I'll talk more about that as I go on. Especially in the first film that starts this franchise, which I cannot understand how the first film actually started an entire franchise for this, because that first film isn't even the best film of the franchise. And, when I say best film, it's still not good at all. It's just, you would assume that the very first film in the franchise would be good, and then, people want more, so you just keep, you keep it going. But that's not even the case. Like, it's one of the worst films in the franchise, in my opinion. But anyway, there's some bad ADR, especially in the first one, which, if people don't know, that's basically where they do the actors' lines after they've actually filmed. They don't actually, like, film the audio while they're filming it, or record the audio while they're filming it. They just do it after the fact. And sometimes it just doesn't sound right, or, the lips don't really, line up well enough, so there's some of that going on. It does get better as they go on, but for that to be so heavy in the very first one that starts the franchise, pretty terrible. The attempted comedy in this, the entire franchise, it's not funny. There was maybe a handful of things that were attempted comedy throughout the entire franchise, because yes, I went through all of the films, which I think is 9 films. I'm not counting the spin-off Gingerweed Man. I just could not with that. That's like the worst character ever. Like, the voicing choice for Gingerweed Man is like the most head-scratcher stupid thing I've ever heard. I was not ready for that. It's like some weird British accent that doesn't match the character at all. It's like, what are we doing? So anyway, handful of times probably I found the comedy somewhat amusing. Just somewhat amusing. The comedy, for the most part, is just awful. It's like, I'm sure there are people who think it's funny, potentially people who are high. I don't know. I don't do that. Did in college, but that was a long time ago. Don't do that. But the comedy's just not good. And that's a lot of what this franchise hangs its hat on, is weird comedy and weed. And it just doesn't succeed at those things, really. I mean, it has enough weed stuff in it and weed smoking in it, I guess, but it goes so heavy on just like odd characters, and odd characters having very prolonged conversations that you really don't need and don't do anything for the actual story of the film. I mean, these movies literally are barely about the evil bong itself. It's barely in there for the most part. None of these movies really focus that much on evil bong. Like, it's evil bong franchise, but it's more about just meandering scripts that don't know where to go, so they just throw in a bunch of conversations because it's cheap to make and film just conversations, and that's what it seems like. And so the runtimes get really stretched, and even with films, because some of the films in the franchise are under an hour in runtime, even those films are stretched for time. There's literally like no story to this. Past the first film that establishes the story, there's pretty much no story to it. It's ridiculous. The films are way too long for what the content is. Yeah, that was literally my next point. I got a little bit ahead of myself on that one. But yeah, it's about an evil bong that doesn't even have good kills. Like, literally the kills are horrible. Not satisfying, not interesting, very low on gore, if there even is gore. Because in the first film, there is some gore, but I don't think I saw any gore after that, for the most part. I guess that all comes down to this, but that's cheap. Like, Caro syrup and red Kool-Aid. I mean, that's all you have to do. Anyway, yeah. This isn't a concept that could sustain a franchise in the first place, but there are 9 films at the moment. I'm sure there are going to be more, unfortunately. Probably more to come. I'm going to give you the release dates, too. 2009, 2011, 2013, and then they decided they did 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 real quick. And you can tell that they were just pumping those out at that point, because they're even worse than some of the other stuff. And then 2021 and 2022. And I'm assuming they're going to continue on that tear and do a 2023, 2024, just as long as they can milk this for the most part, which I don't know how they're milking it. I just don't. Again, the kills are terrible. So boring. Like, at least for a horror film, have some decent kills. Even if you're not going to have a lot of blood. Like, that's not even necessary. Like, I don't even need a ton of blood. But if you're not going to do that, just make the kills kind of interesting. Or at least make the story kind of interesting. None of them are interesting. What it usually ends up focusing around is someone starting a new business. And they're weed smokers, and then weird people show up. And they just have these random interactions with these weird people. And then Evil Bong pops up very slightly, and then it's over. And you're just like, what? I just don't get it. The writing is atrocious. You can probably assume I was going to get to that exact point based off the way I've been talking about it, but it is some of the worst script writing I have seen on screen in a while. And it doesn't even cross over enough into that so bad it's good bad script writing, like something like The Room does, or like Microwave Massacre, Samurai Cop, stuff like that. Like, it's not even that. It's not even a so bad it's good. It's not even close. It's just bad. And I guess this is a good time for me to just say disclaimer. I'm not a big fan of the overwhelming majority of what Full Moon puts out. There are a few films here and there. I think Demonic Toys is fun. I like some of the Puppet Masters. I like Dolls. That one's fun. So there are a few films, but for the most part, I don't like what they're putting out. Like Head of the Family, hate it. Obviously, every Evil Bong film, hate it. I still need to see the Ginger Dead Man films, which, to be honest, like the best parts of the Evil Bong franchise is when Ginger Dead Man shows up, to be honest, because it's such a weird, like, creepy character. But yeah. They do a bunch of recapping in these films of the previous films, and they don't need it. They mainly don't need it because there's no story. There's no story that connects these that matters at all, because they're not going to go anywhere. It's all just pretty random. The only thing that it's maybe needed slightly for is the fact that you're seeing some familiar faces. But that doesn't even matter that much because it's not good. The story doesn't matter. There's so much random stuff thrown in that it's just there to pad runtime. Again, going back to how there's just not the content there for as long as they are. The movies are barely about the evil bong itself. Plus, here's the other thing. The character of Evil Bong is horribly executed. The design is fine, but the voice acting is so one-dimensional. The character says the same things over and over and over again, and just doesn't do anything interesting. And this goes partially to the kills thing, because they're just never up to anything that you care about. And maybe that's part of the reason that they kind of got away from the fact that they were going to actually feature it enough in any of the films for it to make sense as an Evil Bong film. But they could have reinvented it at some point. It's really bad villain, like horribly stupid villain. Another thing, the film Evil Bong 420 actually uses overt racism as comedy. That's obviously not funny. And I get it if, like, this is a movie from decades ago where, you know, the climate was different. Was it okay then? No, but you can understand why it was on film, because at that time it was deemed as socially acceptable, unfortunately. But this is a film that I think was done in, I think that was the one done in 2015. Overt racism wasn't fine then. Like, not even, well, it was never fine, but it wasn't even slightly socially acceptable then. Like, it's just like, why are you making these choices? And people had to sign off on that. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like, it's not funny. And here's the thing. If you're going to something like that for comedy, you obviously are not funny, and you have no idea what you're doing writing a script that is supposed to have comedy in it. Because it's not funny, and if you're trying to get people to laugh, you should be able to do it in many other ways. It's terrible. Next, in Evil Bong High Five, they start pushing full moon merchandise in the movie. I've not seen this before in any movie where they're actually featuring heavily merchandise that they're actually selling and putting the actual website on the screen for where you can purchase that merchandise. It is so tacky. It literally makes the film seem even more like they just don't care, and they are preying on their audience in the worst way possible. I was like, of all the things in there other than the racism, I was just like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. This is a new low. The films start bad, get the slightest bit better, and then belly flop into pure garbage. Especially the last, like, 3 or 4 that I watched. Like, you can really tell that the people involved were not getting paid well and did not really care, and probably had a very low budget and were given a very short time frame to do the filming in, and they're like, let's just get this done. Like, does not matter, let's just get it done. And I know some people are going to say, but Darcy the Mail Girl is in 2 of them, I believe. And she's heaviest featured in the last one, Infinity High, which, you know, it's cool to see her in it, but she does not make the film, you know what I mean? Like, and it's an entire franchise at this point, so it's so tainted by the time they put her in it that you're just like, ugh. I will say, though, my favorite of all of them was Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong. That's not saying a lot, though. Like, I still would not watch it again and did not like it. It's just the least terrible. So, there you go. So, those are all my points for why I chose the Evil Bong franchise as the worst horror movie franchise. Would love to hear your thoughts on what I said, but also what your picks would be. And also, if you want to tell me your thoughts on what Uncle Pete picked, you can do that as well. But thanks, everyone, for being involved with this. We really appreciate it. Do me and Uncle Pete a favor. Please subscribe to our channels if you haven't. Hit the notification bell button if you haven't. It really does help because we're just guys just doing this to do this. It's mainly for fun, but we like building a nerdy horror community here. So For all the free content we're putting out, it's great if you can pay us back by just subscribing and hitting the notification bell button. That's pretty much it. You don't have to give us money. We would like YouTube's money. But anyway, thank you so much for checking this out. And until next time, keep it brutal.